Hi, I'm John Byrne with Poets and Quants. Welcome to a special edition of Handicapping Your MBA Odds. Today we're at the Harvard Business School in one of those famous tiered classrooms. We're here with Sandy Kreisberg, HBSGuru.com founder and our prominent MBA admissions consultant, and a first-year MBA student at Harvard, Alula Eshete, who is the product manager for the Harbus. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the Harbus, it is the MBA student newspaper. And one of the things they do every year is publish an essay guide that includes essays of successful applicants who are now enrolled here as students. We invited both Sandy and Alula to the classroom to talk about the product and to tell you what you can get out of it and maybe also what its limitations are. Guys?
I want to say 10 things. First, to make sure that I get them across, and I'm going to repeat these through the discussion of the book about the essay process. The first thing I want to stress is that, in my mind, the essay is as much a filter as it is a ladder. They use the essays to filter out people, and you can use the essays as a ladder to gain stature. But as I like to say, an essay can make you sit up straight. It can't make you 2 inches taller. The second thing I want to say is, for these essays, particularly the new prompt, what really counts in what HBS has said at info sessions that they're looking for in the essays is just to get a little bit of your voice. Now, what's a bad voice? Okay. A bad voice is one that is braggy. A bad voice is one that is scripted. That's an obscenity in the dictionary of D. Leopold. Scripted and canned is a four-letter word for D. Leopold. And a bad voice, and this is important, a bad voice is the wrong voice for your cohort. So if you're writing this essay and you're a military person, there's a good military voice and a bad military voice. If you're a banker, there's a good banker's voice and a bad banker's voice. What's a good voice? A good voice is reflective, it's not braggy, it's thoughtful, it's aware of its surroundings. So that's another point I want to make. Another point I want to make is a lot of these essays there's no cookie cutter way to do it, but a lot of these essays are based on stating your goal someplace and then pointing to 3 or 4 important experiences that influenced your goals. So if you're sitting out there and you're totally stuck about how to do this essay, introduce yourself to your classmates, a totally acceptable way of doing it is, hi, I'm Jane Smith. I'm very interested in digital media, and I had 4 experiences that got me interested in digital media. Now, 1 or 2 essays in here do that. Yeah. So it's worth buying the book to read those essays alone. So that's the voice issue. And another point I want to make is don't be a one-trick pony. Don't think you could do this whole essay by talking about your trip to Mexico or the fact that you're a magician. You go, all you need to know about me is a magician, and here's how being a magician tells you all you need to know. That very often doesn't work. Okay? So those are some of the 10 things, but those are the 5 important things. So let's get going. Let's talk about the book. Why don't you introduce the book, and we can talk about some of the essays in the book.
Okay, yeah, so this essay book is made up of essays that come from current HBS students. So we have some from the class of 2016 and some from the class of 2017. And so we wanted to give prospective students some essays to look at so they can see what are some examples, what are the different styles, the tones and themes that are used within these essays. And so for the newest set of essays, we have a few engineers, we have some consultants, a banker, architect, and even a few military people. So it gives a broad range of the different candidates that are applying, as well as some analysis that we put in there to sort of highlight what what techniques these applicants use to get their message across. And as Sandy alluded to, some are more effective than others, and you'll see those.
Let's talk about this essay, this first one, the inquisitive mentor. Who is this guy, and how did he write this essay?
Yeah, so the inquisitive mentor, we have an engineer who starts out by talking about a mentor that he had. And so through this mentor, he learned a lot of life lessons and his appreciation for lifelong learning, and then it delves into how that shaped his future goals. And so it's a very standard essay, nothing that's very out of the box, but it's good to keep in mind that, you know, it isn't the essay alone that's being assessed.
Yeah. So he taught. Let's just open this one up. He talks about this engineer. He met a guy. The guy was his mentor. The mentor was giving him a lot of advice. And then what does he use when he starts talking about himself? What examples does he use?
Yeah, so we see that he goes through he has a lot of conversations with this mentor. He goes and impacts his life through one-on-one conversations, walks with the mentor.
Right, but at some point, the essay has to be about the writer, not the mentor, right?
Yes.
So what evidence from his own life does he throw up and put into the essay?
So for that aspect, we have, it goes past it. So the beginning is just the conversations
Right,
with the
he
mentor.
sets it up,
And
and
now he
then-
sets it up with how the mentor set the tone. And then, let's see. Should become a robot coming day. Yeah, so I think you see the lifelong learning, and that's continued through when he goes to college. in
Yeah,
computer
so he
engineering.
became inquisitive, this is this guy's path to becoming an engineer. And
Absolutely.
he uses the mentor as a setup device.
That's what set it up, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, and that's what sets it up is that there are going to be many engineers that apply.
Okay,
So
do you know this guy personally?
I don't know this guy.
Do you think this essay made him sit up straight? Do you think it added an inch, or do you think he got in despite this essay?
For this particular one, I think it's good to, I mean, I can't speak for the admissions board.
Sure.
But it's safe to say that he had strong numbers outside of the
Yeah.
essay in terms of GMAT and scores
I can
and
speak for the
whatnot.
admissions board. How come? Because I really know how they think. Someone might disagree with that, but I'm willing to speak for the admissions board. But let me say, as a footnote, I'm not a member of the admissions board. Okay, let's deal with this one. This is an interesting one. Who's this guy, and how did he present himself?
Yeah, so
This is essay number 2.
Yeah, so this is an individual who is interested in media. It's not stated at the front, but we get to that at the end for his long-term goals and interests. But it starts with a TV show that he watched as a child that allowed him to become more inquisitive, made him think about life more. And Simpsons specifically is the TV show. And through that, it leads him through these different questions that he asks himself, and then throughout his career as he transitions from one company to another, one career path to another, and brought him to a point full circle to being interested in media and understanding the power of media.
Okay, so what do you think of this essay as an essay?
I thought it hit home. It was very different out of the box in terms of using a TV show
Yeah.
that he watched as a child. I believe he was 9 years old, and how
Well,
that.
he gives you information. He's a Jewish guy who was born in the East, went to a prep school in Arizona, and was smart. He did well in school. So
How do you know he did well in school?
I think he says that. He got into good law schools, and is this the guy who was Summa, or is that the other guy?
Are you sure you got? So are you assuming he was good in school, or is that something you have the fact? So
I
we
don't-
don't,
well,
we
I
don't
don't
put in
know. Okay,
we don't put in the scores.
Yeah.
For these different people.
Some people say, like there's an essay here where the guy talks about his name, and he said, when I was walking across the stage, and the dean said, Joe Blow, summa cum laude.
Yeah. So that
guy's-
was a different essay.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
but yeah. So
But let's get back to the voice. What's the voice? I find this guy to be approachable, funny, smart.
okay.
Okay, and the test the admissions office uses about someone. Do you know their acid test?
Of whether your likability?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do they phrase it?
You tell me.
Is this someone you want to sit next to in a section?
Yeah, so it's the same with consulting. Is this someone you want to sit in the airport with overnight?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it's overall it boils down to likability.
Right, and that's the way they put it. Is this someone you want to sit next to? So this
Yeah.
guy's voice is very good. The actual essay is a little risky. It's a little bizarre. If you buy the book and read it, it's number 2. You can make your own conclusions, but it goes from being funny and talking about The Simpsons, and then it flips over the card and it becomes a little earnest, and he's just talking about his jobs. So there's like a bifurcation.
Yeah.
So what do you think the admissions committee said?
I think what's good about it is that I know it jumps from being funny to then transitioning to the different jobs.
Yeah.
But it creates a thread between those different jobs, because what people don't realize is that the way I look at essays is you have an application package that has these patches of information that are a bit disjointed. And so whether he's talking about different jobs or different decisions within his life, the essay acts as a thread that's going to patch or sew together these different threads to create a holistic picture. So while a lot of this information about the jobs are already on the resume, on the application, the essay provides some context for how these decisions are made and what thoughts went into these. So I wouldn't look at this on its own, the essay on its own, and judge it, but look at how it provides context to the decisions that they already are aware of in terms of career and job.
Yeah, I thought the admissions committee would read this essay and go, as you've said, it's not an essay writing contest.
Yeah.
We like this guy. He's funny. He's likable. He's not too funny. Let's go to the transcript and, so this guy has not eliminated himself with this essay.
Not at all. Not at all. And it's not.
How much do you think it's helped?
It's helped. I mean, I can't speak for how much it's helped. I mean, as without looking at his scores and looking at the rest of his package, I can't make the decision that this is what got him in. But what you do realize is that
I don't think it got him in.
It doesn't. None of the essays get you in.
Right.
They get you an interview.
Yeah.
So the essay is a
Right.
ticket to an interview,
Good.
at which point they do further assessment. So this one did get the person to interview, and obviously they got accepted after that. But you're looking for a ticket to an interview. You want the admission staff to want to speak to you further.
Okay, let's talk about the swimmer.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think about this essay? And could you set up who it is?
Yeah, so right here we have a consultant, and a female consultant, and she is a swimmer, lifelong swimmer, and went on to swim at a very prestigious school. But that's what shows up on the resume. And what the essay does is it starts with an injury and an incident that happened in childhood that was supposed to be a career-ending injury. So she thought that she would no longer be able to swim. And so I think she did a good job of providing context around her accomplishments that she was able to accomplish throughout her life, specifically with swimming, going on to being a consultant, and then moving on to working at a startup.
Yeah, I agree with it. This is a tight, clear essay. It's formally one of the better ones in the book.
Agreed.
She starts out by talking about her passion for swimming. She then had an injury. A doctor said, "You'll never swim again." She said, "That's what you think." She overcame the injury, and then she just uses that by saying, in a very straight-on, clear, authentic way, that overcoming disappointments, working hard and overcoming people who said you can't do that, is what I've done 2 or 3 times. There's a way of looking at that and saying, gee, that's a kind of banal, vanilla thing. It works for her. Her stories are not extraordinary. She did not overcome, cerebral palsy to climb Mount Everest. There's nothing extraordinary like that. It's just a solid 3-story essay with a setup told through the swimming thing. This one is really, really good.
Absolutely. And I mean, one thing that's important to emphasize is the consistency throughout those 3 stories, is setting up that theme of overcoming, and you see it throughout. And I think consistency is just as important as content.
If you're answering this question, like introduce yourself, how would you turn this essay into an introduce yourself essay?
Yeah, I mean, I believe she would start with saying, "I love swimming," as she did in her essay. And so that would be right at the forefront to let people know what you're most passionate about. And the injury was a big part, so I think she would probably still go into explaining her injury and how that led her to go on to run marathons, swim more,
Well, see if you
but also go into her career.
Pretend you're her. Introduce yourself.
I couldn't speak for this person. I'm reading a person's essay.
It's not going to stop me.
Go ahead.
Hi there, I'm Helen. I'd like to tell you an interesting story by way of introducing myself. Before Harvard Business School, I worked for XYZ Consulting Company, and the way I got there is interesting. I started out as a very passionate swimmer, and I had an injury that I'm not going to bore you with, but the doctor told me that I could never swim again. And what I'd like to do by way of introducing myself is just tell you 3 stories about how I confronted authority, how I confronted naysayers, and how I overcame it. And I don't consider myself a hero. I don't consider myself, worth putting on the cover of Time magazine, but this is a good way to get to know my background. The first story involved this, and jerk number 1 said this, and this is what I did about it. And then the second story was something similar to that. And then the third story was actually I learned how to help other people. I was working in a do-gooder organization, and I helped these kids overcome their own voice that says no. So that's the kind of determination that got me to my consulting company, and that's what I want to do, and I sure look forward to meeting all of you.
That's good. I'd want to meet you.
Yeah, right, exactly. And you see, that's a way, this essay raises an issue of how do you say things that are braggy without sounding braggy? See, that's very important.
Yeah.
You see, this could easily tilt into something where you go, boy, this is I admire overcoming an injury, and I admire all those victories you've had, but you're being a little unreflective and obnoxious about it. Mm-hmm. See, this is a case where voice trumps everything.
Yeah.
The admissions committee reader reading that essay or listening to that introduction, they already know all your accomplishments. What they're really doing in this essay and in the Introduce Yourself essay, what they're looking to do is to just do this test. Is this someone I want to sit next to? Mm-hmm. And if you got up there and sounded like a real conceited moron, and you were unaware of how you were coming off, you could damage yourself.
Absolutely.
Now, you see, one of the things this book doesn't have is bad essays. Okay, I've seen bad essays. I've seen essays that have screwed people. So, believe me, it happens. Okay, this is interesting. Okay, do you remember this woman? I think she's from Asia.
Yeah. So this particular person is from India.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so we took a lot of the identifying information out of the essays to sort of protect the identity of the applicants. But this person talks, first of all, structures the essay in the way Sandy had suggested and said that is okay. It's not the only way, but it's very good to start out with the goal up front of the essay, and then specifically laying out what you're going to discuss in terms of influencers. And so acknowledging that, yes, they already have all the standard application information, your test scores and your recommenders and undergraduate transcript, but what are the things outside of those that have influenced you to go on and do what you've done and to be the person you are today and influence your future goals? And so that's what this person does a really great job of spanning 3 different experiences throughout her life.
Well, read the first paragraph and let me know what you think about that as a way to start this essay.
Okay, so I'll read the full
Yeah.
one. So the HBS application enabled me to showcase my career path, scholastic records, and extracurriculars. Through this essay, I have availed the opportunity to describe some aspects of my personality and value system that have evolved through some of my experiences. I would like to focus on 3 particular experiences of my life and how they shape my philosophy of management.
Do you think that's a good beginning?
It's solid. It's solid.
Well, this is not a beginning that's going to win you a Pulitzer Prize.
No.
It's not an exciting beginning.
No.
And it's rather overstructured and, dull, okay? My point, they don't care, okay? They'll meet you halfway. She just went through a rather belabored set of sentences that said, I'm going to tell you about 3 important experiences to me. They go, okay, let's hear about the experiences. And then she talks about 3 experiences, and you go, I like this person. Okay?
Absolutely.
You go, I like her. And that's the way this essay works. So this is a good essay to read if you want to know how someone who's not a naturally born writer and is a very careful writer, how they could organize these experiences to come off as likable.
Also to keep in mind that this applicant and many others are international applicants who English is not their first language.
Right.
So the sort of courage to go out and be creative in the writing, don't put that pressure on yourself to feel that you need to be something you're not or speak in a way that you're not comfortable speaking. And the school understands if English is not your first language. So if you feel more comfortable with a more structured approach, then stick with what you're comfortable with, and the school will work with you, because like Sandy just said, we're not looking for prized writers. We're looking for strong leaders, and through that, you don't need to showcase your writing ability on these essays.
Okay, let's deal with with one military essay, particularly the woman who went to Annapolis. Let me see if I can get that up here. Here's my advice to military applicants, okay? Do no harm. What you want to be is the HBS kind of military applicant. The HBS kind of military applicant is thoughtful, is reflective, it doesn't overly press the leadership, it's more showing leadership rather than telling people about it. And, and they don't do Rambo stories, okay? So we don't have a bad military. This book has 3 military essays, and they're all pretty good. The one that's technically the best is a woman who went to Annapolis, and then, remember how she organized that? Yeah, I've got a note here. One of the themes in these essays is the bad father. A lot of people write about being abandoned by by a parent, usually the father. So it works. It continues to work. Yeah, the vegetarian. It's got a funny name. Okay, so
I mean, do you think it's a father's story alone that's working, or what would you say?
no, it's a
is that-
victim story. It's one of the things that works in these essays, and one of the things that works in life, is to either cast yourself as a victim or show yourself, or if that's impossible, as it is for most of us, since most of us are not victims, helping victims, okay? So a victim, I am a victim, or I am someone who helps victims. I've just described 70% of successful Stanford essays about what matters most to you and why. There's just a footnote about how to do a Stanford essay. Victim. Play the V card. Okay, so here's the way, this is vegetarian, funny name for that, right?
Yeah.
She gets right into it, okay? The way this essay starts is like CNN. It says, 28 June 2002, United States Naval Academy. So you're right into it. And then she tells the story. And what's the story she tells here?
Well, I mean, being a woman and a vegetarian, and being at the Naval Academy amongst almost entirely men. And so the challenge of being a woman, moving into a place of leadership where she is the minority for multiple reasons.
Yeah, but this is great. It starts with a quote.
Yeah.
You're a woman and a vegetarian? You'll never make it at this place. So what does she do? Right there.
Who sets up, the odds against her.
No, what she does is she stops being a vegetarian. She immediately starts eating this meat pasta salad that they had there.
Oh, yeah.
And she goes, well, I can't change being a woman, but I can change being a vegetarian. And then what she realizes is that's no way to succeed in life. And then she tells another story where she overcomes obstacles in a different way. Let me tell you the one slightly dangerous part of this essay. There is a 1 in 100 chance that the wrong Harvard Business School admissions officer might blame you for not going back to being a vegetarian. Since the reason you gave it up was nervousness, they would say, you know, I think if you're a vegetarian, you should go back to being a vegetarian. And
Yeah,
it's a very limited danger.
It's very limited. I mean, what it really does, though, it ignores whatever other factors have led her to believe that she no longer wants to be a vegetarian, which I'm glad she didn't go in depth into.
Do no harm, my friend. Don't make fun of vegetarians.
Yeah, no,
I'm not kidding. Do not make fun of it. That's a good way to. Let me just elaborate on this to make a point.
Yeah.
Okay. If you wrote an essay saying, you know, I used to be. Let me tell you about myself. My name is, you know, Joe Blow, and let me tell you about a very unusual transformative experience. I used to be a vegetarian, and then I got tired of people making fun of me, and I stopped being a vegetarian, and I really learned to love meat. Okay. That's a very dangerous Harvard Business School essay. You might get rejected for that essay. Do you understand my point?
It's possible, and you might get in like this candidate.
Well, she didn't write the whole essay about making fun of vegetarians.
Oh no, she didn't make fun of vegetarians, but it had the same punchline of choosing
Yeah.
to learn to love meat. I mean, she probably loved. I mean, I love meat, so I don't really blame her for sticking to being a meat eater.
Did you mention that in your interview?
That I love meat?
Yeah.
It didn't come up, but if I was asked, I would.
Let me say something, friend. It's a good thing it didn't. Okay. You want to deal with the architect or the author? The author is, well, we'll deal with the architect. The author is the last essay in the book. It's just a terrific essay. It's about a woman who self-published a novel and then used that as the stepping off point for 3 other accomplishments in her life. It's well organized, it's well written. It's no surprise that she's an author. So if you want to read a really great essay, you might start at the end and read the author essay. Okay, so tell us about this architect essay. Do you remember this?
Yeah, I remember that. So what aspect do you want to talk about? So it takes place in Chicago. It starts
what's
out.
her setup?
Yeah, so she's an architect. She paints a picture of a cold day in Chicago on her way to work, and then it leads to a very frightening moment of having to partake in some scaffolding. And the fear.
It's a requirement. It's a certificate requirement.
Yeah.
That you have to do a scaffold inspection.
Yeah, as an architect. And
Yeah.
so she went through with the process, was scared during the process, and then goes into discussing.
Well, she gave you good reasons why she was scared. You have to go up on a scaffold, and it takes like 2.5 hours. You're on a scaffold with 2 other people, like a technician or a bricklayer, and you have to inspect the building and write notes at each floor about what's wrong. So if you have a fear of heights, you are going to be up on a scaffold, which is pretty scary, for 2.5 hours. So she does a great job of doing that. And after that, it's kind of over. You go, yeah, I like this person. You know, she's telling a good story. She's admitting to having a fear of heights, and she's very good at capturing the scaffold experience. The second half of the essay, then it becomes a little disjointed, where after she talks about the scaffold story, which is great, she then says, I'm excited to pursue an MBA at Harvard Business School and take the next step towards a career focused on increasing and stabilizing the investment pipeline for affordable housing. You go, huh? So she's an architect, and then she likes affordable housing, and then she does an affordable housing rap, which, that's a plus. But just in terms of essay execution, you like her, it's a little disjointed, it's a little lopsided. That's my take on that. Okay, so do you have any other reasons? So those are all suggestions from me about how you could buy this book, and it would really help you even with the new prompt.
Yeah, definitely with the new prompt. I think it's also almost better that this is a new prompt, so people don't read these essays focusing on trying to replicate completely the format, the structure, the themes that are used. I mean, I think people need to just extract the different examples from these in terms of the different styles, the tone, and then also just the versatility in the examples that people use. So I think that these essays give you a good example of what to use to tie together the different aspects of your application, because while the prompt does say introduce yourself to your fellow students, it is not being read by your students. It's being read by the admission staff. And so they want to see how your different experiences tie together, the experiences, the decisions, and the actions that took place in between those disjointed situations in your life and different accomplishments. And so take a look at these essays. I think they'll also help you breathe a little and not put so much pressure on yourselves that this needs to be.
It doesn't have to be perfect.
No, it doesn't need to be perfect. And I think Sandy has hit that, is that it doesn't need to be perfect because we're not looking for, we do have an author in here, but HBS is not accepting students that are future authors. We're looking to build the student body, or the school is, and we want our peers to be different, interesting. And if you can't write the perfect essay, and if English isn't your first language, and you're nervous, so you sort of don't structure it the way would be best in terms of writing etiquette, that's perfectly fine, because your application and acceptance does not hinge on your essay alone. It's an entire package. This is just one component that can help you.
My final words: do no harm. Do not write an essay making fun of vegetarians.
Well, I'm a pancetta lover and certainly not a vegetarian, but I really enjoyed the insights you guys provided on the guide, and I really think it's a great product, and a lot of applicants out there, whether you apply to Harvard or any other business school, will probably benefit from it. But also be careful with it. May your MBA dream come true.